Today, we're going to be talking about branding, something that is critical to almost every business out there. And we have one of the foremost experts in that area, Larry Gulko. Larry is a brand architect and a strategist, executive coach, and growth advisor. His track record for positioning an eclectic range of brands to compete more effectively in today's rapidly evolving business landscape, and it sure is rapidly evolving. He founded Brand New Day. His website, which is not up on the screen, but let me just tell you what it is. It's brandnewdayretreat.com. So brandnewdayretreat.com. Larry told me that if you go to Brand New Day and don't put the retreat in there, you're not going to find him. So it's a one-of-a-kind company focused virtually and in person on brand building, strategy retreat that he created. He moderates the annual Harvard Business School Association CEO Brand Leadership Roundtable. He's also the co-host of Name Brands, the CBS Boston podcast leadership series. And for 20 years, his advertising and brand consultancy agency, Gulko and Company, has launched and positioned brands for the Fortune 500 middle market companies, entrepreneurial ventures, and not-for-profits. Larry, it's great to have you here. I'm going to let Chris kick this off with the first question.
Thanks so much, Phil, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you all again today. As Phil said, and Larry, we really appreciate you taking the time. You and I have had the pleasure of knowing each other for a few years now, and I'm always so impressed both with the amount of data you see in the space around brands and the people leading brands and what they do with their brands, but also sort of the thoughtfulness about really getting under the hood on a brand. I'm wondering, where we sit right now, especially in the wake of what we've seen in the last 6 months. What are some reasons that brands fail to succeed?
Well, Chris, first of all, thanks so much for having me and in your audience, whatever, and I'm looking forward to delivering some great value during this hour that we're going to be together. I would say, Chris, that what I've witnessed over the years, I've been doing this like 30 years, 2 or 3 of the reasons why brands fail to succeed. One is they really lose focus, or they don't have a focus, or they fail to find a focus. And, for example, like there's so many times that people, have a focus. Like, I'll give you an example, and she's a good friend of mine, Lizanne Kindler, who's the CEO of Talbot's. They lost their focus, and as you know, about 6-7 years ago, they almost went bankrupt. They had 550 stores, and then Sycamore acquired them, same company that acquired Staples. She brought them into the black again. But what actually happened was, they lost their focus. They were a women's store. Then they created Talbot's for men, then Talbot's for children. And I'm saying this in a very funny way, but the pet business is booming. What was the next step? Talbot's for pets? I mean, they could have really created some really nice clothing for pets, right? And so they lost their focus. And so when they contracted their brand and we just went back to women, they're doing really well. Just like other stores, Brooks Brothers had Brooks Brothers for women, and so Brooks Brothers is a men's store, Talbot's is women. But sometimes people feel they can expand their brand because their name is so well known, they can put anything. So the lack of focus is one thing. A few other things that too many brands fail to really create what I call a unique value proposition, something that's really authentic. They're really copying the brands, and I call it that they're in the sea of sameness. They're really in the muck, and they're a following brand. They're not a Me Too brand. And as you know, if you're a following brand, you're always nibbling at the leader. Like the more Burger King nibbles at McDonald's, what does it say? It says McDonald's is the leading brand. So McDonald's owns children's hamburger, Wendy's owns adult hamburger, and Burger King's in the mushy middle. I'm not slamming any brands. I'm just sharing. I always share great examples of big brands doing good and bad and indifferent, whatever. And so I think it's all important. Otherwise, you can see a sameness. And you, Chris, as an attorney in a law firm, that even though I have this program with Roger Berkowitz called Name Brands, there's a very big distinction between having a name brand and having a brand name. A name brand is a go-to brand, a brand people aspire to be. They want to work there. They want to write about you. They want to be a client. They're a cool brand. A brand name is a brand that you file an LLC for in Delaware or whatever, and they're incorporated and call it a day. So I think the focus, the value proposition, the failure, a lot of companies fail to really create an emotional connection with a customer that's really relevant and authentic and meaningful. They do that. I'll talk about later on maybe, is that I read an article in the Harvard Business Review last week that the average CEO works 65 hours a week, but only spends 3%, Chris, a week interacting with a customer. So how can you really embrace or enhance or create a remarkable brand experience for a customer if you're not living the customer, you're not talking to them? So I just think that is all really, in collaboration, the same thing. But at the end of the day, every brand, whether it be Nixon Peabody or other companies, every brand needs a brand champion. Every brand needs a brand champion at the top of the helm, whether it be the president, CEO, the general manager, whatever the title is, who's really driving the business, that's creating an example for the other employees. So you have great brand ambassadors. Your employees and teams should be living your brands, breathing your brands, because they're ambassadors. So I would say those are things, but losing focus is really the key thing, or not having a focus,
So, Larry, let me jump in here with a question. So, you recently talked, in your program at the Harvard Business School, you were focusing on the importance of being recognized as a specialist versus a generalist.
Right.
So, talk to us a little bit about that branding strategy.
Yeah, companies that are generalists tend to lose market share. They tend to try to be everything, everybody, and they end up being known for nothing for not many people. And to illustrate that, what I usually do in illustrating it, I illustrate what's happening in department stores today, right, Phil? So department stores, JCPenney, Sears, Macy's, they're all having major problems. They're going bankrupt, whatever. They're generalists. And so many people, at one point in time, department stores ruled the roost. And everyone felt that they really lost ground. But what department stores did wrong was trivial to what the specialists, the great focused brands did right. I'll give you an example. Many years ago in a department store, it was Macy's, whatever, there's a little book department. And now that book department grew a great brand, focused specialist, called Barnes & Noble. Then there was also this little lingerie department, a very general brand, a small brand within the department store, right? And they became a focused, specific brand called Victoria's Secret. And then the cosmetic department from the department store became Sephora. And the little TV department became Best Buy. So you see where I'm going? So it's important that, in the kitchen department, the housewares with the blenders, whatever, became Williams-Sonoma. So in turn, people who are generalists, that they're all over the board, lose. And I always tell clients, if you have 15 sub-brands, 20 sub-brands, maybe you should have 3 or 4. Everyone's always saying of expanding the brand. And I have no problem expanding the brand, but I also have another philosophy. New brand, or new camp, new brand. I'll give you an example. Back in the late 80s, I was consulting with Levi's, not the Gap, Levi's. And at that point in time, I think law firms were the ones that first to lead the pack, where law firms are having Casual Friday. I think you were the guys who said on Fridays, hey, on Fridays, right, you can wear khakis. So Levi said, hey, we won't get in that business. We're going to create Levi casual wear. It failed. Levi activewear. It failed. And then I bring this up because in my discussion today, everything I'm talking about is conceptually, nothing to do with budget. I don't care if you have $1 million budget, $30 million budget. It's irrelevant. It's all conceptual I'm talking about, right? So they said, but we really believe khaki's the way to go. So I said earlier, new camp, new brand. So Levi's created Dockers. But 99.9% of the consumer out there has no idea who makes Dockers, nor do we care, because we don't buy companies, we buy brands. I mean, if I showed you a jar of Skippy peanut butter, you might love Skippy, but you don't know who makes it, and you don't care. So the whole thing about specializing, it's okay to specialize, but understand that if you want to expand your brand, sometimes you can do it under your umbrella, your brand umbrella, but many times you should find a new category, a new camp, a new brand name. I only know of 2 companies who expand their brand under the same brand name for years and years and years, and that's General Electric and Sony. Whenever you see a Sony Handycam or Sony this, Sony that, but they're the exception to the rule. So the better a brand can do to really specialize and hone in and be special and own something special, they're going to win. But if they're going to this broad base, they're going to really divide the power of the brand. They're going to distract the brand, and they're going to water down the brand equity and the brand value.
So Larry, to really kill a category, obviously you want to be a product that people both want and need. But if you only get to pick one, where do you want to focus? Do you want to, what's the balance between being something people want and something people need?
Okay, to me, and anybody who's a professor in college will probably maybe dispute what I'm saying, but they're always talking about consumer needs. No one told Steve Jobs, I need a phone to walk around Federal Street talking to people, okay? To me, it's all about want. Nobody needs me. Nobody needs Nixon Peabody. When I gave a speech at the Health International Business School 2 years ago as a commencement address, I told all the 800 students, nobody needs you. And that's why they were like in awe. And the president of the school looks at me saying, where's Larry going? It's all about wants, all right? When you're an aspirational brand, Chris, and people admire you and they trust and respect what you're doing, they want to be a part of your organization. They want to work there. They want to be a client. They want to buy from you. They want to write about you. They want to recognize you. They want to give you awards. It's so important. It's just like, for example, like nobody needs a Rolex watch. Okay, somebody wants one, so you can afford it or you can finance it. But if you want a Rolex watch, you can have one. My wife does not need a Lexus. She works at Digitas in Boston. I live in Sharon, and there's 5 train stations in 2 miles. She really only needs a bicycle. She really does. But she wants a Lexus, so she wants it. So I always tell people that, you know, even like, for example, like when you look for a house or a condo or a car, we all have a budget. I mean, let's say you have a budget, Chris, of $500,000 for a home or condo, and you find something in the Back Bay or whatever, anywhere, for $625. If you really want it, we find the money. So I'm just saying that, and I'm just saying like something like Nixon Peabody, if you are providing remarkable service and remarkable friendships, not transactions, and your position like no other brand in your space, clients will find the extra $1 or $2, whatever it might be, to be able to afford your services because they want you so bad. Again, so to me, I tell clients and companies, how do you become aspirational? How do you become the go-to brand? Because when that happens, people find the money. And even like in consumer goods, we buy a lot of goods in the supermarket. And I buy Paul Newman's brand all the time, and I never look at his prices because I relate to Paul Newman's brand of helping kids out in need, hole in the wall, cancer. It saddens me. So I feel good that when I pay 50 more cents, and I'm not here to promote Paul Newman's brand, but I'm just giving an example. When I buy Newman's Own 50 more cents versus Barilla, it makes me feel good. So I find the extra pennies or dollars to buy his brand. So I think in general, you want to say to yourself, what can we do as a brand to be a want, not a need, to really be differentiated and really be quite special so people will not, worry about paying for us. I'll just another example. Disney, the average family of 4, it takes them today, in the past 3 years, 4.7 years to afford a 1-week vacation, all in, wheels up to wheels down. So you better be delivering an amazing experience, all right? So people who can't afford it, they find the money. They might save for 3 or 4 years, but they find the money because they want that vacation. So become a want, not a need.
So, Larry, we've heard you talk about, the need to take a fresh look at your brand and define what your brand is really selling. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah. I share a lot with people, like, you have to really take an immersive, fresh look at your brand and say, what are you really selling? I'll give you an example. When I was consulting with Harley Davidson makes motorcycles. They're not selling motorcycles. What are they selling that emotionally connects to their customer? They're selling freedom. They're in the freedom business. So by selling freedom, that's embodied in all their communications, their brand voice, their website, their visuals, their brand voice, their trade dress, and all the stores, whatever. They're in the freedom business. I'm not a biker, but I'm a boater for years ago. But you're on the water. You feel the freedom, like unbelievable, right? Disney's not selling parks and cruise ships. Disney's selling happiness. And right here in our own backyard, Sandy Fenwick, the CEO of Children's Hospital, I said, Sandy, what are you selling? She's not selling research and the best brains in the world and innovation and all the Harvard doctors and whatever. She's selling hope. And life is good based in Boston here. What is Burton John selling? They're not selling T-shirts. They make T-shirts. they're selling optimism and good vibes. So you got to say to yourself, we know, and like, even I'm like Nixon Peabody, you're a law firm. There's a lot of law firms in Boston. So you got to say to yourself, what are we really selling that's unlike any law firm in the market that we can put, something like rungs on a ladder, we can own that rung and nobody else can own it. So doing a really deep dive and saying, what are you really selling is really, really important. And to understand that is a real big exploration of a deep dive soul. I consult with country clubs. They're all the same. Banks are all the same. I'm saying law firms have the same services. So it's even much more compelling and much more an exercise to say, what are we really selling? Have everybody buy into it. Because let's say you have 400 employees at Nixon Peabody. Everybody's 1/400th of your brand image. They're a brand ambassador. So it's important to really understand, what are we really selling? Make sense?
No, it sure does. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, that's right, Larry. I mean, and you and I have talked before about thinking about your brand as being sort of first in the mind. Elaborate on that a little bit for us, for our audience, because I thought it was pretty thought-provoking.
Yeah, the first in the mind wins. The first to occupy space in the mind. I don't care whether it's a salon, it's a restaurant, it's a law firm. I don't care if it's a company that's selling widgets. The first in the mind is the go-to brand. I'll give you an example. IBM was not the first computer company, but IBM positioned themselves as the first. FedEx was not the first overnight company. Emirates Air Freight was. But FedEx positioned themselves as the first. So once you position as the first, or you occupy the first position in the minds of the consumer or the business person, you win. When you think of Hertz, Chris, when you think of auto rentals, who comes to mind first? Hertz usually. And for 75 years, Avis says we're number 2. But then, who's 3, 4, or 5? Is it National? Is it Budget? Is it Alamo? We really don't know, Chris, because we really don't care. When I ask you what's the tallest mountain in the world, what would you tell me, Chris? The tallest mountain?
It's Everest.
Right. If I ask you what's the second tallest mountain in the world, what would you tell me?
Yeah, K2.
Some people might say Kilimanjaro,
Right.
whatever, right? And the reason we laugh about it is, honestly, conceptually, we don't care. We really don't. And if I ask you, for example, you or anybody listening, if you can close your eyes for a moment and think back of who's the first person you kissed when you were 12 years old or 14 years old, I remember who it was. If I ask you who the second person is, we tend to forget. It's vague. So it's so important to say to yourself, what can we do to be first in the mind? I mean, Motorola created the first cell phone. Where are they today? Nokia. Where are they today? So the concept, again, of being first in the mind is huge. So somebody could say, we've created this here. So-and-so does it as well. I don't care about that. The first one to say it. Many times not what you do is what you say. The first one to say it owns it. And when you're the first in the mind position, that is key. I'll give you an example. If you're a cereal, you go to the average cereal section of 50 linear feet. I'm not here promoting any cereals. Let's say like Kashi cereal. This is a real test of brand loyalty, and Kashi is the go-to brand. You go down the aisle, you pick Kashi, you're not looking at the price because they're first in mind. The great test of brand loyalty is, number one, if it's empty and there's no SKUs there, do I then go from Stop and Shop to Shaw's to get it? Do I wait to be replenished? Or do I say, something? I'll pick another cereal. If I pick another cereal, that means I have no brand loyalty. And once I go to another brand, that brand loyalty, my regular brand, is lost. And until that brand screws up, I'm now brand loyal to somebody else. So again, I mentioned earlier, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a salon, whatever it is, you got to occupy the first position in the mind of the consumer, a business person, because once you do that, it's so ingrained, unless you screw up, unless you become your biggest competitor, you're going to have that first position for a long, long time.
So Larry, look, it's really competitive out there, right? And some areas more than others, but most business owners, talk about how competitive it is in whatever space they're in. So, share with us why businesses should dominate or own a product category?
Okay, well, marketing is a battle of categories, and it doesn't matter to me whether, even old brands, WD-40, they own a category. Zumba, they own a category. They're not just another dancing routine. Zumba has 12 million people a week doing a Zumba class. They have 80 million people, 147 countries doing Zumba a year, whatever. So the importance of creating a category and owning it. Again, otherwise you're a Me Too brand, you're in a sea of sameness, you're a commodity. If you're a commodity, we buy you one thing alone, Phil. We buy you on price. And unless you're Target or Walmart, I don't want to be in the price business. So if I had to recommend, there's one brand out there that I think is one of the best category product leaders, and you might laugh about it, but it's Q-Tip. I would say to any people listening, become the Q-Tip. Q-Tip started 100 years ago by Leo's Gazerfton gang, and then they were acquired, I think, by Lever Brothers and then somebody else, whatever. But they never vied. They own the category of, you want to call it, the cotton swab. However, that category brand name is more powerful than Xerox. Years ago, Phil, we used to say, give me a Xerox copy, right? And now we say, get me a copy. Years ago, we used to say, get me a Kleenex. Now we say, get me a tissue. But Phil, when's the last time someone came to your house and took a shower and yelled out, hey, Phil, where are the cotton swabs?
Right.
So it happened. And again, they own the category. They never vie from the category. They're not into diapers, baby wipes, shampoo, conditioner, nothing else. They are the leading brand, the only brand, except for a private label CVS, of cotton swabs. So, as I mentioned earlier, marketing is about a category. What category can you own? UGG owns a category. North Face owns a category. This product here, Tiffany's owns a category. I could give my wife this box, Phil, and there could be nuts and bolts in it, and it'd be special. It'd be special. I could put pizza in this, it'd be special. So every time you own a category, it can be visual, it can be product, it can be a color, it can be a logo, it can be a lot of things, but it's mostly the brand voice. So owning product categories is really important, because otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, you're in the sea of sameness, and you see the sameness, you're just a Me Too humdrum. And if I hear people saying to me anymore, well, we think out of the box, that to me is a yawner. Like Jack Welch would say to you, if you don't change the game will change you. So you have to either create a category and own it, like Rent a Runway, create a category, they own it. Open Table, create the category, and they own it. GoFundMe, create a category, and they own it. The Tide Stick, Tide did not create detergent, but they created the Tide Stick, the portable stain remover. Okay, Purell did not create disinfectant. They created the portable disinfectant machine. So you've got to own a category, and when you own a category, you're the first in mind, and you're an automatic purchase. And that's really, really important. And whether it's Nixon Peabody or anybody else, everybody can create or own a category that no one's owned, and basically wave your flag and yell from the top of the roof, we are known for XYZ. But category dominance is really important. Southwest used to own a category for low-cost airline, and on and on and on. But you got to own something. Otherwise, again, I can't say enough. You're in the sea of sameness, and I don't want to be in the sea of sameness. And none of your CEOs or marketing or your clients want to have a product that's a Me Too product. They want to have a category ownership so they can command the price that they charge and also create the value of the consumer of what they expect.
So, Larry, you've either created or taken steps to own a category.
Right.
You've maintained your focus, and you haven't gotten sort of led astray into adjacent areas that sort of dilute you. What's next? I think, how do you continue to sort of defend that position? Is it all about sort of creating memorable customer experiences?
Yeah, it's interesting, Chris. You've created a category, but it is hard, and you got to be dedicated to continually driving that business and staying focused. Now, I'll give you examples that, and also great brands, I think I mentioned, are not great marketing campaigns. They're great business stories. Great brands deliver the unexpected. Anybody can do good or better. And I'll give you an example about the customer experience. The only way someone can know the customer experience is by living it. And I'll give you a good example. I think you know this, Chris, that I did a fireside chat with Ed Baston from Delta Airlines a year ago at the Harvard Club. And Ed and I did another follow-up one virtually 2 weeks ago. And people would not expect it, but it's true, that Ed Baston, the CEO of a $58 billion company, when he flies 4 hours or less to a meeting, he flies coach. He flies in the back of the plane. He sits in the middle seat, 4 rows from the lav, the seat that you and I would never want to sit in. Because, Larry, how can I know or live and breathe or improve the customer experience if I don't know what it is? He says the coach area of my planes is where the action is. And unless I know the action, how can I make it better? So it's so important that how can you deliver a remarkable customer experience and create legions of raving fans if you're not living in that customer's shoes to be able to make a change? I'll give another example. Bain did a study a little while ago, which blows my mind. Bain polled, Chris, they interviewed 300 CEOs of major companies in this country, and 87% of the Bain CEOs said, word for word, we deliver a superior customer experience. When Bain then went to the customers of those 300 companies, do you know what percent of the customers agreed with the CEOs? What percent do you think it is, Chris?
I'm going to guess it's probably pretty shockingly low, 30%.
Hey, how about 8?
Wow.
8%. To me, Chris and Phil, 8% is like 0. But when you think of it, how can corporate America be so not attached to the customer? How can they think and live in the ivory tower and be strategizing at this level, not really understanding what's going on at that level? I mean, what a major disconnect that can be. And again, if, for example, Sharon Research or Back Bay Research did, it's one thing. This is Bain, reputable company, great study. I mean, it's amazing how companies are developing strategies without ever even talking to the customers, talking to the clients. How can we improve the experience? What do you like about us? What do you dislike about us? Again, this is not rocket science at all. But when I work with clients as an executive coach, I saw with Johnson & Johnson. They almost lost $30 million of a whole new product extension. I talked them out of doing something because they never, ever talked to the customer. They just thought they could. Remember years ago, Johnson & Johnson said, our baby shampoo is good for children. I'm sorry, our baby shampoo is so soft, it's good for adults. Well, do you hear that campaign anymore? No. They were better off having another competitor come in and share that common message, but they lost it. So it's important, like talk about customer experience. Take Nordstrom's, and it starts from the top. Take Nordstrom's. I was at Nordstrom's the other day, and I returned a product unintentionally that they don't even sell. I returned a Joseph Abboud pair of jeans in a different color, and the young kid in college said, I'm empowered to make any change I can on the $700. So again, I don't know Mr. Nordstrom. I know the college kid. That college kid's the brand. He made my experience great to the point I stayed there. He gave me a credit. I ended up spending $400 that night buying more things because the experience was phenomenal. So I always tell people, how do you create a remarkable experience like Nordstrom's and other companies? The experience is awful. I won't name the company, the brand, but one brand out there, a major brand, they should have boxing gloves in the lobby because whenever you go there, they say, hey, 31 days, your receipt's 32, we can't help you. I mean, they're out to beat you up. You got to treat your clients and you got to treat your customers like they're your best friends because we have choices. We have many choices of consumer products, of law firms, accounting firms, cruise ships, real estate agents. We have choices. So what can you do? Not you. What can the people listening do today to create a remarkable experience, choreograph it, that everybody buys into it, that's part of the DNA and the culture? And when you do that, good things happen.
Well, when you're talking about customer experience, I was thinking about a lot of stuff there, Larry. I mean, a lot of people who are listening in today, and the three of us included, until COVID hit, spent a lot of time on airplanes, right? And it's quite a customer experience traveling these days, or it was. Yeah. And I remember one time flying on U.S. Air from Washington, D.C. to to Boston, and they canceled the flight, as US Air used to do a lot when there wasn't enough people on it. And they put us on a flight to Providence, and only after it took off did they tell the folks who thought they were going to Providence, who'd been sitting on the ground for 3 hours, that in fact we were now going to Boston.
Wow.
And the plane they went crazy. And I'll never forget, the flight attendant said, "Listen, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about it. We just do what we're told. But if you don't like this experience, you should never fly US Air again." I thought about that a long time. But it's good to see that, JetBlue, Southwest, Delta's done a great job. Whoever's been running Delta.
Well, Phil, I'll give you an example, okay? And I'm not here to slim any airline. But United and American came out with a campaign 2 weeks ago. We're flying full capacity. Middle seats are all sold. Half price. Come on board. Okay? Delta, on the other hand, all their LinkedIn communications, all their messaging is about disinfectant, what they're doing now in Mayo Clinic. That for example, they're not going to fly anybody plane when 60% more capacity. They will delay the plane. It did happen the other day. They delayed the plane 737. They brought an Airbus A20 because they will not go with that percentage. So you say to yourself, the C-suite at American and United, the board of directors, they all approved it, saying, hey, let's tell people we're flying like nothing happened. Come on board, full capacity, call it a day. And say, I don't understand how a company can be so socially irresponsible at a time of pandemic. And then you have Delta that's not even talking about destinations, not talking about pricing. All we're talking about is, and really, Ed Bassin's comment at the end of every LinkedIn message or any commercial, it says, when you feel comfortable to fly, we hope you'll consider Delta. That's what he always says. And Ed puts people before profits. Okay?
Right.
And I'm just saying, Southwest last week, I saw on Facebook saying they discontinued. And again, I'm not saying don't fly Southwest. I'm just sharing what I saw last week. They discontinued in COVID-19. We are not going to be sterilizing the plane between every flight now. Well, what's that message? Again, we have choices.
Right.
We have choices. I know him, Jay, the Delta, because I know him and I hear what he's doing. And I believe what he's doing. And to date, he has facts. Not one passenger flying Delta has been reported to have COVID-19 because of that flight. I'm just sharing information. Yeah.
It's a good one. And actually, so let's talk a little bit more about that in this COVID era. What advice would you give folks that are listening in here about how they should be rethinking their brand, just given? It's hard to generalize, and there's lots of different businesses, but maybe by giving us some examples or just some thoughts, what has COVID changed about it?
Yeah. I'll tell you, let me give you an example. I interviewed the CEO of Bombas Sock Company. Bombas Sock started 6 years ago. I know you've heard and the socks are expensive. They're the most comfortable socks I've ever worn. They're $15, whatever, okay? In 6 years, okay, but Bombas started as a company to help out the homeless. In 6 years, they have donated 39 million pairs of socks. So for every pair you and I buy, Phil, they donate a pair to somebody who's homeless. So what are they doing now? Okay, I was talking to David. We had an hour conversation back about in May or June, whatever it was. Besides socks for homeless, they're supporting people in need in the New York City area. They're supporting the frontline folks. They're giving out socks. And it's not a PR stint. This is not a PR gig. It's part of the DNA. They want to do the right thing. So they're stepping up to the plate. And I believe that companies that are doing the right thing during this pandemic, when we come out of it, will be better positioned and have more loyalty from doing the right thing authentically. I'll say it again, not as a public relations stint, but because they're doing the right thing. It's meaningful and it means something. So Bombas is doing things besides socks. They're helping out, okay? Talbot's Clothing, I mentioned earlier, but Talbot's now is involved with Dress for Success. There are 80 million people they have helped, and about, I think, 20 million in the last 4 months get back into the workforce. Not just with clothing, with money. They're partnered with O Magazine, with interviewing skills, how to find jobs, how to write a resume, how to poise yourself, how to craft a cover letter. They're helping them in today's day and age with so many people are unemployed and they've lost their jobs, and some have never been out of a job for 20 years. They're lost. They have no idea how to find a new job or how to even, what the first step is. And so Talbot's, Just as Success in New York and O have programs to helping women, regardless of what your income level is, get back in the workforce. So I'm just saying, those are two examples I've seen, and other people I've talked to, even the Chamber of Commerce, what they're doing are good things. But the most important thing is they're not doing it just to have a great article in PR or pat themselves on the back. They're doing it because their people in the company, their culture, the DNA says it's the right thing to do. So anything you can do to be a good brand citizen, to do good, give back to the community. I'll give you just another example. And really, I'm just thinking about it. And I'm not trying to really fly Delta only, believe me. But Delta has put together a program 3 months ago. Every one of their 90,000 employees will be paid this year, take 1 day off and do something in the community. Help out somebody, volunteer in a nursing home, do something to help out mankind. And again, this is conceptually from Delta. I'm saying any company can do it. And I don't mean, believe me, I'm not trying to just push Delta. I'm just thinking of CEOs I spoke to recently and what they're doing, like the CEO of Merck Pharmaceuticals, what they're doing to give back to the community and the community involvement. A lot of things people are doing right now with the COVID-19 are very much community involvement of what can we do to help people in need, people unemployment, people who lost loved ones, call someone on the phone, consult with them, grieve with them, whatever it might be. And it's just the right thing to do because we've heard the term before, we are in this together. Back in 2008 during the recession, yeah, we were together, but it wasn't health related. Right now, it's scary. And it's just, this virtual experience is wonderful. Well, let's face it, there's no vibe here. After we're all through, we'll all say goodbye. And it would be great to be in your conference room, Nixon Peabody, and having the 90, 100 people here and have a cup of coffee, have a bagel with them, and just meet and greet and say hello. So the insulation period is very hard for many people. 5 months later, it's really hard. So, those are things, but, anything a brand can do to be a good neighbor is going to work well. But again, has to be a DNA, has to be you want it. And it starts from that brand champion. It starts from the top of the ladder. It really does.
Larry, we still do. We talk to our more junior folks within our organization about living their lives and conducting their practice like they're on television, because you want to be always sure that whatever you're doing in your practice or whatever you're doing in your life is something that you're proud of. And that idea of sort of walking the walk and not just talk to convey an authentic brand experience, I think in this day and age is even more pronounced and more important, because literally everything we do, whether professionally or personally, is on television in the form of social media. So I think what you're saying isn't just the right thing to do, it's the necessary thing to do if you want to build that brand equity, because everybody's watching all the time.
Yeah, and something, I think also your employees, I'm just talking about Nixon Peabody right now, your employees want to do something good and they want to help out. And if anything, we talk about branding, I also talk a lot about internal branding. How can we create our employees, our team members, not just a C-suite, but the people to really want to do good? How can we engage them, motivate them, share what the purpose of the brand is, share what the purpose of the initiative is, and share with them how their role can contribute to the overall success of an initiative that the firm is proud of doing. So I think there's a lot to be done with internal branding and group collaboration and group inventing ideas, not thinking out of the box again, but thinking, inventing, what else can we do? And also polling them, saying to your team, what do you feel like we should be doing? And get that feedback, that two-way communication, because there's so many ideas out there, and many of them, again, have nothing to do with budget. And I know right now we're in cash preservation mode all over the place. So we don't want to really sponsor and add a lot more money. We have to, but everything we're talking about, Chris, and you mentioned, it has to do with people and time. It has nothing to do with budgeting and a line item. It has to do with what's near and dear. So what I would do, I would poll internal branding to the employees and staff next to Peabody and everyone listening, to their own employees, saying, what's important to you? We want to hear from you. And just listen. Don't say a word. Just maybe poll 100 employees. What will make you feel really good right now to help out people, because we're all in this together, to kind of just make people feel better, to enrich people's lives, I don't care if it's even greeting people at Children's Hospital in the lobby. Just something that you're going to go home at night saying, I feel really good. I did something special that was meaningful. And, you know, there's nothing better than enriching someone's life in some way that's just going to be pretty positive and impactful. And those people might never, ever meet you ever again. It doesn't matter. You know, you did something really wonderful. And when you as a person or employee were called upon, you stepped up to the plate, you know. But again, it starts from the top of the organization to embrace it, to inspire people, to really delight people and say, hey, here's what we're going to do as a team. Let's go do it, you know. And it speaks volumes. It really does. Even clients and customers, I always tell people, clients and customers, especially millennials represent 54% of our population today. Millennials buy brands, do business with brands that they can relate to. The values of that firm, the values of that company, the value of that brand relates to me, and I want to buy or work or do good because they're doing good. So again, the more you, Chris, with your firm and people listening in, can create initiatives and efforts that are authentic, that are genuine, that are from the heart, really from the heart, it's going to go a long way. It really is.
Larry, I'm just glad that when we were all young, we didn't have iPhones, right? Because if videos and pictures were surfacing from my younger days, it would be hurting my brand right now. So probably all of us, right?
I'm with you.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question about living your brand.
Yeah.
You know, for a company, maybe even for a small company, you know, what advice you can give to help them sort of live the brand, especially when it is authentic. You know, sometimes we get to go visit lots of our clients, and some of them really are best in class and leaders. And I myself am always impressed when I see the brand literally painted on the walls, you know, in the lobbies of their offices and so forth. And, you know, sometimes we'll talk about that internally at our firm. Maybe there's something a law firm should do as well. But you know, to me, that's an example of, like, it's right there in your face. Everybody, they're telling the whole world, this is our brand, this is what we stand for. And it's sort of wrapped up in everything else that the company stands for. But what's your sort of view about how to live your brand?
Well, you know, I want to quote Sir Richard Branson. He said, treat people well enough so they can leave. I'm sorry. Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. And that's huge. I also tell people say to me, oh, we're doing great, we're batting 1,000. If you're batting 1,000, you're losing. That means you're complacent. So, and in response to your question, Phil, it's, you know, people are doing things, but, you know, like Mark Cuban says, every minute of every day, somebody is trying to steal a customer away from your company every minute. So what you have to really do is you can't be complacent, and you can't be batting 1,000. And, you know, there's no substitute for innovation. Bold and disruptive thinking wins. I'm not saying be revolutionary, but bold and disruptive. How do we really create new and exciting things? Because let's say you've been a company for 20, 30 years, 40 years. How do you sustain that growth? I mean, I always say, I'm a golfer. How does a golf ball company like TaylorMade, Titleist, they keep saying we have the perfect golf ball. After 50 years, right? How many more dimples can they put in that ball to make it the perfect golf ball? When is the perfect golf ball going to be? And they're done, right? So the thing is, like in any company, whether it's Nixon Peabody or the folks listening today, you know, what can they do to sustain? You know, the Bose of the world and the Zildjians of the world. Zildjian, a 420-year-old company, the number one brand in cymbals and drumsticks. What are they doing now? New materials. And you think, I'm just saying loosely, you think after 400 years, Zildjian would have figured out the best ideal, the best product, the best symbol. They're constantly thinking. You constantly have to reinvent. That's the word. How do you as a company, whether you're a startup company or 40, 50, 100 years, 200 years, Bergenstock, 245 years, how are they reinventing? So you have to say to yourself, how do you reinvent yourself and keep reinventing? And one thing I would tell every company listening, even Nixon Peabody, what can you be doing today to make your companies obsolete? I say that because if you don't do it, somebody else right now is working their tail off trying to steal your lunch. So instead of somebody else making you obsolete, you make your own brand obsolete and bring the next generation of products instead of somebody else doing it and then you doing it. I want to read you, I have a little caricature that I have in my slide. I just took up. It's not in the presentation here. You'll see it's a great caricature. And I want to read it because it really feeds into what you said, Phil. The top says there are 8 people in a boardroom with a CEO with a light bulb, an idea. And it says, mind to market in 3,000 days. And then the copy says, we've repeatedly squashed this idea for almost 10 years. But now that our competitor's launching in July, let's drop everything else and ship. Too late. So I tell people all the time, when you have the opportunities and you have the capability to move, you move. So like I said earlier about, making yourself obsolete, you got to outthink competition and do that. And like Richard Branson also said, if your dreams don't scare you, Phil, they're too small.
Right.
If you're not waking up in the middle of the night thinking about your company, it's too small. You're complacent. So the word here is, how do you reinvent your brand? How do you keep going to the next level? What will it take to bring your brand to the next level continuously in terms of driving brand performance, driving revenue growth, driving expansion, driving different market sectors, unlocking new markets, new messaging. Sometimes people put one message for all their markets. It's cookie cutter, one size fits all. That can't be, but we see it all the time. And to be disciplined to do that, like I'm saying, Nixon Peabody could have 15 different market segments, but it should probably have 15 different messages that fall under the brand umbrella of the umbrella statement of Nixon Peabody, and then different messaging according to different market sectors that you serve. And it's almost like saying, I'm just saying, let's say one of your businesses is family business. If all you have is family business, what would you be saying? And that would be the brand voice, or M&A, or mid-sized companies, or nonprofits, or financial, or real estate, or consumer. And that's how you got to think about the brand. So it's a lot of work, but at the end of the day, really great things happen. They really do when you discipline yourself and you do it right. Like I said earlier, when Jack Welch said, if you don't change the game's going to change you. And once it changes you, Phil, then you become your biggest competitor, and then you're going to dig out on yourself, and you don't want to ever be in that position. We see it all the time, and it's sad, but it just takes discipline on building a brand and building a leading brand that people love and respect.
Now, there's a great question from the audience that we'll throw at you, which is, if you're in a sales construct, whether it's B2B or you're selling to a procurement division that's not the ultimate user for your product, how do you still sort of actualize and operationalize sort of enrichment in your brand, and how do you I guess almost sort of end run around that sales cycle to further your brand?
I'm sorry, Chris, say it again. So basically you have a brand, and the customer, the B2B customer, doesn't feel the need, or it doesn't align with what they're doing?
Yeah, your sales process is through a procurement officer who really probably is immunized to the influence of your brand. So how do you, as a brand, sort of get to your customer in other ways other than the straight sales process?
Right. I think that you have to do, Chris, you have to be a trendsetter or a trend spotter. Now, that procurement officer, they could have had experience with somebody else from that brand category and been burnt or oversold, underdelivered. Said, and the procurement officer says, you're like the rest of them. And then, no, we're not like the rest of them. So I think it's up to you as a salesperson or a marketing person to try to figure out the trend spotter and a trendsetter. How else, what other angle, again, authentic angle, how can we craft a different message, a different solution, a different application to align with what he's thinking? Because right now that procurement officer is thinking very linear. He's thinking past experience. So how do we kind of just, again, invent a new approach, a new messaging, a new brand voice, a new alignment, so it might make sense that company or that procurement officer has never thought about in the past? Because you know something, we as marketers and we as salespeople, when we have a customer who's a procurement officer, it's our job really to make them a hero. Years ago, was an old saying, Chris. I'm talking about years ago, right? Nobody ever got fired picking IBM. All right? Hey, boss, the system is down. I picked IBM. So we have to establish confidence, credibility, trustworthiness with that customer. So he feels, hey, I tried something different with this brand. We never used it before. I think it could work. And if it works, he or she's a hero. So we got to put ourselves in their feet and saying, how can we break down the barrier to them saying no? How can we make them feel at ease with us? And how can we get them to buy in so if they take some ownership with us that, hey, this product that we sell, this widget, whatever, it makes sense. The application is different, but you know something? They see like we see it. And again, it's not a transaction. It's a partnership. It's a collaboration. And I think if you go in even though we're selling and we're all consulting in a way, consultative mode, if we go in a collaborative mode and get the person to have a sense of ownership, I think the high probability of winning.
So, Larry, I'm mindful of the time here, but we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
Sure.
You know, how often should a business revisit their brand? You know, is that a continuing thing? Is that a once a year thing, or once every 5 years? How do you view that?
I feel that a company should take a fresh look at their brand every quarter, because I think because things are changing, there's so much marketing noise out there, especially today. Go back 25 years ago, before the internet, when we had, I'm just saying, in TV, 3 or 5 channels of TV. Today, the communications vehicles, the platforms, are beyond thinkable, right? But right. I think there's so many pivoting we're doing, especially in COVID-19, when every forward pivoting with people, new ideas, new ways of doing things, people staying home, people working, whatever. Our brand voice before, maybe she modified. I believe that quarterly, a company should take a fresh look at the brand, do a deep dive, get involved in an immersive conversation, create an idea tank atmosphere, and look at what's happening. What did we decide 3 months ago? How's it working out? How can we pivot, reinvent, change, modify, delete, enhance? And then next quarter, what do we want to do? I think to keep a pulse on your business, you have to have about a 90-day period to really just have an overview. And I recommend an overview inviting people from the company of diversity. I'm not saying the last thing you want to do, any company, to invite 15 people from marketing. That'd be egocentric, non-productive. It'd be awful, okay? You want to invite people who you feel are brand ambassadors. If you have a HR director who's been there for 20 years, you want him or her in. You want the VP manufacturing in. You want the CFO in. You want people who really live and breathe the brand, and you value their opinion, not just marketing people. And so to have what I call slices, and we wanted to, years ago, I used to do this with Cybex. I had quarterly meetings we called slices. I brought in pizza every Monday for 2 hours. We had slices of pizza, but it was sliced up by different people in the company, and it was very valuable. And I'll give you an example. It may sound crazy. The morale at Cybex went bad, this is like 10 years ago, because they were changing some of the culture. They had a once-a-year event in the parking lot. They had a major barbecue, and then they went home. And someone in HR decided to can that idea. The morale went down the tubes. The CEO calls me, Larry, you call the HR person, tell them we're doing the pig roast in the parking lot. No one's going to work, and that's it. But that one little thing, and even the word thank you, forget about salary, forget about bonus, just a recognition of people, of thanking them, goes a long way. We don't have thank you anymore. You go to a restaurant. I mean, I personally, because I'm in marketing and branding, my intent is always up. When I get great service at a restaurant, I ask, who's the manager? I want that he or she be recognized. It was a great night, great service. I just want to let you know, this person's a rock star. Because all we do primarily is we complain. We always look for things that are bad, but we never thank people. So thanking people and lifting people up and just sparking them, it goes a long way to the culture and how you value and how they feel like family to your company. This Bombas company, they've been involved around six years now. Only 2 people in 6 years have left the company. Only 2. Every year, twice a year, they spent, ready for this? They spent $240,000 for a retreat for 3 days with all their employees, no business talking, whitewater rafting, barbecues, whatever. They're like a family. People don't leave Bombas. And I know it's only 6 years old, but they're doing something right, how they treat people like that. But this comes from these quarterly reviews. I know it's a long answer, but quarterly is the best way to have your thumb in the pulse. And quarterly, I invite different people, maybe some overlap, but you still want to ask different segments of your employees to join the team, those who you value their input, and those people got to feel really good that they were asked to contribute, to voice their opinion.
Well, Larry, you were very kind to accommodate our format here on our NP Connects webinar. We do this for an hour, as we say, every couple of weeks. And I know that many of the themes that you touched on today, you go into far greater detail in your Brand New Day program. And again, if anyone's interested, you can find that at brandnewdayretreat.com. Larry offers a variety of programs, both individualized programs, and then, as you can hear from some of his anecdotes, ongoing relationships with folks as well. And Larry, thanks again for being here with us today.
Well, thank you. As Robert De Niro would say, Chris, it's good seeing you. I haven't seen you. We got to have coffee at the Marriott. I got to hug you. A virtual hug. Hug, everybody.
Exactly. So, and everyone, thanks for attending today. In addition to seeing a rebroadcast of this program, you can also find videos of all of our prior NP Connect sessions, as well as a host of other alerts and information at our website, nixonpeabody.com. You can also sign up for our mailing lists and alerts there as well for many areas of interest, and also see our schedule of upcoming programs. So, Phil, thanks again for another good session.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. Thank you, Chris. Great conversation today.
Everybody stay well.
Take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, take care.